Right. So you have to have this knowing that, okay, it may not work today, it may not work tomorrow, but this is the right thing, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what's feeding me. So that would be the best advice that I can give you. That knowing, just believe in what you're doing, and if you don't believe in it, then you're not doing it. You haven't figured out the thing that you do best yet. When you feel it and when you know, no one can tell you. You only have to be right once.
Welcome to the night section. 2 years ago, Jay-Z made history. Jay-Z was the first hip-hop artist to become a billionaire. Now, all of this money didn't just come from his music, and with most billionaires, if not all, it doesn't just come from one source of income, but rather multiple businesses and investments. However, some of the reasons why this is so significant is, for one, Jay-Z's background and upbringing. Not to mention being someone who's African American. Statistically, this feat was basically impossible. But something else to point out is the fact that he was and is one of the best at his craft. And when I mean craft, obviously I mean rapping. And it's been this common notion for centuries that great artists don't make money. Or if you want to be a great artist, you're not allowed to want to be wealthy, as if money and artistic integrity were two opposing forces. And I think Jay-Z made it his life's mission to prove that notion wrong.
Me, myself, I can operate in that venue. I can operate, I can walk that line between, putting out great art and, getting paid for my art. I'm not one of those, excuse my language, I ain't one of those that they could talk to and be like, you're an artist, you shouldn't have money. Like, that's the gas. They hit you with that. They make you, I don't want any money. I want to be a pure artist, and I don't want to have, it's the music business. If that's the case, you should, any artist, not Kanye West, any artist, if, they should just record in their basement and never enter the music business. I just happen to be really good at the music business.
So how did Jay-Z become a billionaire? Today we will be discussing exactly that in 3 parts, but before we get into it, please be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification if you'd like to see more content like this. Number 1, music. Now, this is the first and obvious way that we know Jay-Z made his money, which was through his music, and he would then leverage his status and career, which would open up more doors and opportunities. And this is important to point out because as much as we hear the notion that fame doesn't guarantee money, you can argue it does when you know how to leverage your fame. According to Wikipedia, quote, Jay-Z has released 13 studio albums, 4 collaboration albums, 1 live album, 1 compilation album, 1 soundtrack album, 2 extended plays, 115 singles, including 45 as a featured artist, 9 promotional singles, and 82 music videos, end quote. In total, Jay-Z has sold over 50 million albums and 75 million singles worldwide. Today, his music catalog is valued at close to $100 million, and he's obviously seen the majority of that money as he now owns his master recordings as well as his publishing. But it wasn't always that way. According to an article from CelebrityNetWorth.com written by Joey Held, quote, both Jay-Z's tunes and business acumen have helped make him incredibly wealthy. More than a decade ago, he made moves combining his music and business that are paying off big time today. Back in 2004, Jay-Z was about to become the president of Def Jam Records. He had already recorded 7 albums with the label. He'd ultimately dropped 9 records on Def Jam. Normally, when an artist releases a record on a major label, they give up their rights to the master recordings. In exchange, they get a cash advance, a percentage of sales, usually 10 to 15%, and the thrill of recording a major album. Then he continues saying, by the time Jay-Z was set to become Def Jam's president, though he'd already released several hit records and thanks to some shrewd negotiating, he was able to re-obtain the masters coupled with a salary of just under $10 million. Jay-Z was living large. Around the same time, Jay-Z also negotiated a deal with EMI. That deal returned his publishing rights to him. Every time, say, a TV show or a movie uses a Jay-Z song or an artist samples one of his tracks, he makes money. The EMI deal didn't take effect until 2013, and the Def Jam masters weren't returned to Jay-Z until 2014. Still, he had some incredible foresight to negotiate for them. end quote. Now, under the music umbrella, we also can't forget about one of the major contributing factors to his music bag, which is touring. Jay-Z had some of the highest grossing hip-hop tours of the 2010s. Examples are the Watch the Throne tour with Kanye West back in 2011 to 2012, grossing $75 million, or in more recent times in 2018 with his 444 tour grossing $48.7 million, his highest grossing solo tour ever with 32 shows in 2 months. And we can't forget the On the Run tour too, in the same year, co-headlining with Beyonce, that grossed over $250 million. Although it's unclear how much he's made for touring in general, we know that it's definitely in the millions. Number 2, businesses. Jay-Z said it himself, "I'm not a businessman, I am a businessman." The meaning is obvious. He understands that he himself is the business, and over the years he has shown that he's not only one of the greatest rappers to ever spin on a mic, but one of the greatest people in business ever, and he has a track record to prove it. Most people would say that his first venture ever was through Rockefeller Records back in 1996, but I personally consider him selling crack on the block to be his first venture. And listen, this was out of necessity. Growing up in a poverty-stricken neighborhood, Jay-Z had to be creative and do what had to be done, but little would anybody know that this would lay the foundation of the businesses he would build years later.
What did you learn on the street? Because you talk about being 13 and selling crack. Did that teach you something of how to be a successful businessman, or how we all are
all
common?
all the things that you apply in business, they say that he has great instincts, but well, on the streets, having great instincts can be the difference between life and death, not just losing the deal.
Or incarceration.
Or incarceration, which is less than death, right? And which is, and being a person of high integrity, people want to deal with you, in business, in the
Trust.
streets, trust and honorable, and, a man of your word, all these things come to play in business world. I'm not condoning any street activity, but it's just the way it is.
In 1996 is when Jay co-founded Rockefeller Records with Kareem Biggs Burke and Dame Dash, another thing born out of necessity. If you guys recall, this was around the time Jay was shopping around his music to major labels, trying to convince them that he'd be the next big thing, and was outright rejected by all of them, which is exactly how Rockefeller Records was born, so he'd be able to release his debut album, Reasonable Doubt. Though the label became defunct back in 2013, Rockefeller Records was a huge staple in hip-hop, who birthed many different artists like a Kanye West. And with Rockefeller Records as well came Rocawear in 1999, a street clothing brand, where we saw Jay-Z start to expand his businesses beyond music and into fashion. And in its peak in the early 2000s, Rocawear would have annual sales of $700 million, according to the New York Times. And though both Rockefeller and Rocawear would eventually be sold, these were the major first steps on the road to becoming a billionaire. Now, when we talk about Jay-Z's most known businesses to the public, we have to talk about Roc Nation and Tidal. Roc Nation was founded in 2008, which today provides various services including artist management, touring, music publishing, brand development, etc., and even has a division dedicated to sports management services since 2013 called Roc Nation Sports. Roc Nation is a hub that today spans across all entertainment, not to mention equity distribution, which is Roc Nation's independent distribution platform like a TuneCore or a DistroKid that allows independent artists like perhaps yourself to distribute music across platforms like a Spotify or Apple Music while retaining ownership of your masters. The Roc Nation imprint today is valued at $140 million. With Tidal, now this is an interesting backstory, but to keep it short and sweet, in 2015, Jay-Z bought a Norwegian streaming service for $56 million and basically polished and rebranded it to become the Tidal we know today. Since then, there's been a lot of controversy regarding the service, like falsifying streams, etc., and not being the quote-unquote platform for artists. We won't get into the controversy too deeply for this video, but regardless, Jay-Z made bank. It was actually revealed that this year Jay-Z sold a majority of his stake in the company to Jack Dorsey Square for $350 million. Now we know Jay-Z has been a billionaire before this year, but it's still remarkable how he moves with his different businesses and deals. By the way, Tidal is worth about $600 million today. Honorable mentions for other businesses in his portfolio is Armand de Brignac, or Ace of Spades, which makes for $320 million in his portfolio, and the 40/40 Club, which is a chain for high-end sports bars and lounges that Jay started back in 2003. Number 3, investments. I'm pretty sure it's impossible to have generational wealth without investing. And since the beginning, we have seen that Jay-Z was constantly investing. Even when he didn't have much, it started with investing in himself. And later that would grow into being an early investor in Uber back in 2013, investing $2 million, which is now worth over $70 million. And Jay has continued to diversify his portfolio, which also includes multiple businesses, startups, real estate, as well as art pieces, including pieces from Basquiat, more specifically the Mecca, which is valued at $4.5 million. According to Forbes, his entire art collection is worth about $70 million. Now that's some crazy stuff. Night section out.